What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome to another Not Your Status Quo, What's Next, where we talk about what is going to happen next in the final episode of
WandaVision.
So this episode was kind of like catching up with Wanda. We find out what she's been going through, what made her do this. But, my questions are, is Agatha being helpful? Or is she she's trying to get the knowledge of how Wanda did this, which is exactly what they're saying on the show. But I always feel like there's something behind that. Now, and at the end, I think maybe she's only afraid because she's a Scarlet Witch. She doesn't know. My thoughts, they're going to team up. That's one of my predictions.
A bunch of nerds.
I definitely think you're right, Dave. As soon as she realized that this was the Scarlet Witch, who I'm sure in all of her years of studying and reading dark tomes and studying dark magic, this was probably prophesized somewhere.
We're not prophets. When are you going to start telling me what we are?
And as soon as she figured out what she actually was, it probably frightened her a little bit because there's probably more to that prophecy going on.
This is chaos magic, Wanda. And that makes you the Scarlet Witch.
If it is, we talked about it in the comics, she was marked by Chthon, and that's what gave her the chaos magic, and that she is going to be a vessel for him to possess in this world. Now, whether that's the case in the MCU, we don't know, but that could be, and if there's anyone who would know about it, it would be Agatha Harkness.
that last episode was pretty crazy. I'm glad that we finally got a little bit of, we got something to go along with Wanda's backstory. We finally have a visual. We've only ever heard what Wanda has said, how her and Pietro survived a bomb from Tony Stark.
We wait for 2 days for Tony Stark to kill us.
They know what they are.
But we've never actually seen what they really went through. We didn't know much about her parents. We didn't know a whole lot about Sokovia. We didn't even know that much about the experimentation with Hydra, other than her and Pietro were there and that the Mind Stone was introduced. So that was very interesting, the fact that they were finally able to show it. But I think one of the most important things, and you guys both touched on this, one of the most important things that they showed us was basically who Agatha is in the MCU. They kind of let us know what type of person she is. And in my opinion, after seeing this is my theory going forward for maybe not even just the future of WandaVision, but if she ends up making any other appearance in the MCU. I think this version of Agatha, the MCU version of Agatha, I think she is a seeker of knowledge. I think she parallels very well with Doctor Strange, where Doctor Strange wasn't satisfied until he knew as much as he could get, constantly going to the library, constantly reading up on things, and constantly trying to look into books that he was told he shouldn't have knowledge of, some of the darker knowledge. And I feel like Agatha is very similar in that opening scene where she's put on trial by her fellow witches, and they tell her,
"You stole knowledge above your age and station. You practiced the darkest of magic." I know nothing of these crimes. I swear it. Enough deception.
she seems to me like the type of individual that whatever this power is that she has, if this is in fact another school of magic within the MCU, whatever it's going to turn out to be, don't worry folks, not going to go into it here.
No. It's not at all what you think.
Whatever this turns out to be, I think she's overall, over anything else, it's a bit of selfishness, but she's a knowledge seeker.
I have a theory, but I need more.
And so I don't think she's working for anybody. At least that's my going theory for the time being. I don't believe she's working for anybody. I think she's genuinely curious how Wanda was able to manipulate reality to the point that she did. I think she wants to know both A, how Wanda did it, and B, how she can do it too.
Doug, after what we learned in the last episode, I think you are absolutely right. She came just to learn how this was done. She has been studying magic for all this time. She even says in the episode, I studied for years, and this is about the extent of what I can do. And what you did was, unheard of, and I want to find out how to do it because You're right. She parallels Doctor Strange in a lot of ways, that she wants power. Now, whether it's for good or evil, I don't think she sees it either way. I think she's kind of a very Loki-esque character, and she will do what's best for Agatha Harkness. And I think that's going to play out in possibly the final battle in the last episode.
Final battle? Keith, can you promise me? CGI monster? Skybeam?
Of course I can promise you that. I'd be lying, because I don't really know, but let's hope for it is. But what we are going to have in this final episode, I think it's pretty clear. We're going to have White Vision being launched at Hayward's request and entering that to figure out what exactly is going on. I'm not sure if he's trying to get that created Vision, thinking he's real and he's that $3 billion worth of vibranium, but we're going to have a battle. Now, who's going to take part in this battle? I definitely think Agatha Harkness and Wanda, and if Agatha does join them to stop Hayward's Vision, that would be kind of cool, because we'd kind of see that sort of Lokiism in her. She doesn't want Wanda to get captured. She probably wants to get more of her, better understanding of how her chaos magic works, or she does know part of the prophecy and she wants to either help Chthon possess her because maybe she's going to get powers, or she's smart enough to know, I want nothing to do with that because it always goes back. So we'll probably find out more about that. She does have the Darkhold, possibly, which, was created by Chthon, so that's always a possibility. But we're going to have Wanda, we're going to have Monica, we're going to have Agatha, we're going to have White Vision, we're going to have normal Vision, Paul Bettany Vision, which if Paul Bettany was talking about working with himself as that big, actor he's always wanted to work with, wonderful trolling. I think that is fantastic. And we all fell for it. We all had a million guesses who it would be, and he's just wanted to work with himself. But finally, I think the last person that's going to enter this battle is Peter.
Hey, Peter Parker.
Or Pietro. I do think that he is going to join the battle with Wanda, Vision, and Monica, because when Monica, at the end of episode 7, when she was attuned to Agatha's magic in that basement, she did not see any of that purple magic around Pietro. So I think she was done possessing him or using him for eyes and ears, and she just cast him aside because she had Wanda now and she was working on figuring out how she did it. So I think Pietro is going to join the side of the good. Now, whether he's the Pietro from the X-Men universe, we don't know yet, but I'm still hoping he is.
You know what all of this could mean? Now, we've talked about a lot of potential other big bads. So while I don't think Agatha is necessarily working for anybody, other than maybe her weird bird-eating rabbit, still don't know what the heck was up with that. But even though Agatha may not actually be working for anybody, what we do know is there are a lot of other evil beings in other dimensions, as mentioned in Doctor Strange. So who knows what all of this magic, all of Wanda's magic, all of Agatha's magic, what is this going to end up attracting? Are we going to see Chthon? Are we going to see Nightmare show up? And if we do see one of these creatures, I believe, because we already spoke about how Agatha is kind of a seeker of knowledge, I think she will be aware of whatever dark creature they end up facing. Now, whether this ends up leading into the Multiverse of Madness, which it could very well be, I think this is what's going to force her to team up. Again, like Keith mentioned, she's a bit of a Loki-esque being where she doesn't seem to side with good or evil one way or another. Her morals are yet to be determined, whether she's going to be a good guy or a bad guy. But I think if it is one of these dark creatures that she's aware of, I think it's going to force her to call a truce and team up with Wanda or with other people, whether it's to fight one of these other creatures or maybe it's to fight White Vision. Who knows?
And while we're on the subject of Agatha, I want to talk about what she's been doing since the incident with the Coven. And I do think she has basically been in hiding, just gathering knowledge for her own uses. She's been obviously staying away from hopefully the Sorcerers and the Sorcerer Supreme, and is only drawn out by that intense magic that Wanda did. And I do think she basically has now exposed herself to Doctor Strange and maybe one of his associates. And that leads me into Dottie. I do think she is going to be someone magical. She wasn't on Agent Wu's board, so they had no idea who she was. We didn't see her in Westview when Wanda was driving into town before she did that, did that spell. And if Agatha was able to feel all of those spells and feel its power, other sorcerers could too. So I do think that if not sent by Doctor Strange, Clea felt this and got there as quickly as she could and was overwhelmed a little bit by the Scarlet Witch. And that's why she does have some breaks from reality, but she is under control of the Scarlet Witch with that hex. But I do think we're going to find out that's Clea. And when we do see Doctor Strange show up in episode 9, he is going to bring her out of this. And they're probably, if the fight isn't over, they're going to help in the final battle.
Keith, I hope you're right. I hope we see Bundersnap, Crumble, Snitch. I hope we see Doctor Strange in the next episode. You bring up a really good point, and I really think you're onto something with that, because if we remember in Thor Ragnarok, not only was Doctor Strange able to sense that Loki was back on Earth, he immediately opened up a portal underneath him and forced him to keep falling until he found out what he was doing back on Earth. And if he knew that Agatha was out performing some sort of evil magic and perhaps was a threat, I think he would have done the same thing.
And finally, are we ever going to find out who Agatha's husband Ralph is? Is it someone who is married to her in the form of magic? Because we did see when she freed herself from the Covenant and killed her mother, that she said, "I can't control it. Please don't do this." And it sounded like someone else was basically helping her, granting her power to maybe get some of this done. So maybe that is who Ralph actually is. He could be Nightmare, he could be Chthon, or maybe even Mephisto, who was helping Agatha gain power. Now, she may have just been going along to gather that power for herself, but I don't know if Ralph is just kind of an ongoing gag that was kind of sitcom-y, or if it's going to turn into be something much more at the end of WandaVision.
Yep, dates match up here, Keith. That theory on Ralph is correct. Back in 1693, that's when they hooked up. So that's what we think on this What's Next for WandaVision. What do you think? Put it in the comments. We'd love to interact with you. And hey, join us next time on Not Your Status Quo.